Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Wesley Kriz, and this is BearTracksPottery. Today, I'm going to be making a couple of mugs, and I'm going to be using a technique that is known as fluting. It's a fun word to say, fluting. You'll see what that means in just a few moments. You've seen Tortoise on Instagram, and I'm sure many others as well. You'll be a little bit aware of what this is going to look like. But it's rapidly becoming one of my favorite techniques. Anyway, I'm preparing my throwing surfaces here. I've put a bat down on the wheel head, cleaning it up a little bit, had some dried clay left on it from a previous time throwing. And now I'm going to be making a little chuck. This might be slightly more complicated than it needs to be, but I almost always will throw using square bats on a clay chuck. I find it easier to take the pieces off of the wheel doing it this way, and it means I can also make something out of that chuck after it's all, after my throwing session is finished. Usually I make a plate, having compressed the clay with all of my other throwing tasks. It tends to work out pretty well. And familiar viewers of the channel will know that I've shown what this looks like in the past. But here we are. I'm just centering down my clay, getting it nice and low and wide so that it has plenty of contact with my smaller square bats so they don't slip around too much. This is my first time experimenting with a 2-camera setup, and you'll have to let me know what you think of it. Is this a good setup? Clearly one camera is slightly better quality than the other. I'm using 2 GoPros. It's a GoPro, I think it's a GoPro 8 or 7. And then the other camera is an older GoPro 3, I believe. Alright, I've got my chuck all set. I'm happy with it. So it's time to start things up. I'm only going to be showing 2 of the mugs here today. I did make a set of 8 of them. But for this video, you'll get to see the full process of 2 of them in real time. So I start things up here. I'm just really making sure that this bat is attached to my chuck. Spending a little bit of time just compressing it down in there, getting it all ready until I'm just fully comfortable. And there we are. Now, these mugs are, I believe, about 1.25 pounds of clay. One of the things that really helps me unlock my sort of groove as a studio potter is making sure that I'm using the same weight of clay. Some of you are going to know that very well. Others of you will be like, oh, I've never even thought of that. It's true. If you use the same amount of clay by weight, by mass, for each piece, then they will be more likely to be the same size and shape. Again, that's not going to be news for any experienced potters, but if you're not a potter or if you are brand new to the art, that might be a little helpful hint for you. Alright, I've got my first mug all centered. It's time to open it up. I'm going to be using sort of a bowl technique here. Mugs usually are cylinders, but because I'm planning on leaving a foot on these mugs, I end up kind of trying to establish a bit of a curve into the bottom of this mug. As opposed to a flat bottom surface, which would be more of a cylinder technique. But again, I'm planning on leaving a foot, trimming a foot ring into this later, because of that, choose to have a curved bottom. All right, I'm starting to pull up my walls here. Let's see how this goes. Do I achieve it in the mythical 3 pulls? Just for the record, it's not actually that important to achieve this in 3 pulls. Sort of a rule of thumb to help you avoid tiring out your clay. Your clay can get tired out, which may be something that some of you aren't used to thinking about. But eventually, if you work it too long, it will stop standing up. It will just want to collapse, and that's a huge bummer. So we try to avoid that by not working it too much. In the words of Paul Hollywood, the great British baking show, you want to avoid getting it overworked. Is that copyright infringement? I hope not. Alright, I've got my walls pulled up here, and now I'm going to sort of scrape off the extra slippy clay that I've built up on the outside there as I'm using water to throw. And now you can see that I am smoothing out those sides, scraping off that excess moisture so that I can apply my texture without worrying too much about it. Alright, now it's time. I'm scribing in my fluting lines. I'm using the smallest of my texture options for this one. The key here is to be firm, but not too firm, gentle, confident in those motions. Alright, here's the part I like the most. There we go. So we're already getting that lovely twisting pattern on the exterior of this cup shape. Now I'm going to establish the overall final shape of the cup. You can see here, sort of giving it a bit of a waist, stretching it out. The more you stretch, the more twist you get. I personally am a huge fan of that twisting shape. I think it's so lovely. Feels really lovely on the hand as well when the cup is finished. Nice grippy texture. So I'm just refining the overall shape of the cup now. Try to even things out, smooth things out a little bit. Try to get the rim of the cup nice and smooth. As you can see, we picked up a bit of the wobble, and that's partly because I couldn't touch much of the outside of the cup while I'm throwing. Otherwise, I would get rid of all of those fluting lines, which would defeat the point of even putting them there. That's okay. A little bit of a wobble, not a problem. All right. That. All finished. Gently peel it off of the chuck and get ready to move on to the next one. Right, next lump of clay, let's get it going. Center it up. Establish that little cone before we push it back down into a nice cylindrical patch of clay. See, this one's fighting me a little bit to get into center, but we get there. We get there. All right, let's open this thing up. Try to establish that perfect base. Ideally, I don't have to come back and touch it again. It'll stay consistent for the rest of the process of making this piece. If I do my work well, that's what's going to happen, but spoiler alert, everything may not go well. Alright, now we've got a bit of a wobble on this one. I don't think I ever quite got it into center. I got it really close enough for many purposes, but I can feel it fighting me, and unwisely, I chose to fight back. And I used too much force, and you can see that I developed a really thin spot down there. And that is a danger. If you push your clay too hard, it will not thank you for it. Ideally, you move smoothly, consistently, patiently, and if you do that, things tend to work out. But as you can see, when you push too hard and you try to assert your dominance over the clay, things can go pretty badly. And in this case, I decided to just stop trying with this lump. I'll re-wedge it, use it later, and we'll just make another one. These things happen. You move on. I've said it before, but doing pottery isn't the same as doing other kinds of art where you spend hours and hours and hours on one piece. I mean, I suppose it can be. There are definitely potters who look at the work more like that, but that's never been the way that I engage with my art. I have always been the kind of person who wants to spend, a relatively short amount of time on each piece. And that means that you can't hold on to any of them too tight. You gotta let go. When something goes wrong, it can be frustrating, but you breathe it out, you let it go, you make another one. Alright. Speaking of making another one, we've got this new lump of clay just about centered. And this one feels much better than the last one. Feeling much happier with the way this is feeling in my hands. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to open it up. Using my index and middle fingers there to just establish that curve like I mentioned earlier. This is also where I'm tending to put in my little spiral on the base inside of the cup. And it's time to start pulling up our walls. Let's do this. Up the walls we go. And then we're gonna scribe some fluted on it after that. So you thought I was just gonna keep quoting Gollum there, but I didn't. I changed the script. You'll have to forgive me. Or thank me, depending on if you like my Gollum impression. got this nice and tall. I'm feeling comfortable with how thick the walls are. So it's time to scrape off that slippy clay so we can get our textured lines in there. One of my teachers who taught me how to do pottery, Don Sprague, always would say that he felt that pottery is at its most beautiful when it is just off the wheel and you can see the moisture in the clay, see that little bit of sort of shine that it has on it, and I definitely understand what he's talking about. You can see here I'm using a larger tooth pattern on my texturing rib here than last time. Last time I used the smallest of the teeth. This time I'm using the middle set. And if you've made it this far in the video, first of all, you rock. Thank you for spending a whole, 15 minutes at this point with me. But if you have made it this far, you'll have to let me know if you think the larger texture, the bigger teeth, look better to you than the small ones. I'm a little bit torn myself. I can't decide. Getting that waist established, stretching things out. Want to get as much of that lovely twist as I can. Trying to support with my index finger at the base so that we don't get too much of a wobble. That was mostly successful in this one. Just trying to flare out the rim of the cup a little bit there so we get that sort of S shape. Press the rim, really establish it, smooth it out so that it's nice to drink from. I like to use my knuckle for this. A lot of people use a chamois or a sponge. I don't know, I've just never felt comfortable with that myself. Nothing wrong with it, and maybe I should try again. I'm sure there are people who say that it's the best way, the only way. And they might be right. It might be better than what I do. Gotta be honest. I don't know everything. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks for joining. See you next time.